is that you are, again, subscribing on YouTube. Hit that subscription button. Also, hit that notification bell. And then, if you will, on Facebook, follow. If you're on Instagram, follow as well. Twitter, we're always sharing wonderful information on all of these platforms. So, wherever you're watching this from, go ahead, subscribe, like, comment, share, do what all you must do to engage in the dialogue. And again, thankful that you will take the time to do that for us on this evening. Well, this is a wonderful Tuesday. This is what's known in our community as Blackout Tuesday. And this Tuesday is the day in which the African American community has engaged in a boycott of the American economy. And we're doing so that we can lift awareness to our power and what we bring to the table. And so for every person that has been taking part in this Blackout Tuesday, I salute you and thank you so much for your meaningful and intricate part in this Blackout Tuesday. And while we are discussing Blackout Tuesday, there are so many different topics that we must always explore. And as we explore them, we look to always make sure that we are bringing necessary awareness to. And so tonight, I want to make sure that I take this time to talk to you with a very good friend of mine who has devoted his time into environmental justice. He has spent a majority of time here over the last couple of years advocating for environmental justice, and I thought it was very appropriate that tonight we bring him to Long Talk to discuss the current events of not only today, but what's been transpiring during our time of crisis, both pandemic and also racial inequalities that the African American and Black community has been facing over the last several months, and if not years, if not decades, if not centuries. And tonight, I'm so privileged to have a brother who has been fighting on the front lines for environmental justice. So tonight, without any further ado, Long Talk audience, will you help me welcome my friend and my brother, the Reverend Michael Malcolm. Brother Malcolm, how you doing tonight, sir?
Man, I'm well. How are you, Pastor Daunta?
I'm
Everything all
doing
right with
well,
you?
sir, doing well. So thankful that you've taken the time to come on and chat with us on this evening.
Yes, yes, yes. Now, let me go ahead and get it out the way now. Pastor Dante and I have known each other since we were knee high to grasshoppers. So we've known each other for quite some time. His
Absolutely.
family and my family were connected through my grandfather, Bishop J.T. Barnett's church
Absolutely.
at Central Holiness, and so
Absolutely.
we've been around each other in some shape, form, or fashion for a mighty long time.
A
So
mighty
I
long
say
time.
that to say I ain't gonna be calling you Reverend Dante Long and Pastor Dante Long. I'm just gonna call you Dante, and you were more than welcome. Just call me Michael or Mike. It's more than fine with me.
Absolutely. We are brothers. We've known each other. As you said, your grandfather was a pioneer in the Atlanta religious community. Um, and the legacy of Apostle J.T. Barnett is long standing, not only there at the Central Holiness Church, which is located in the heart of the city of Atlanta. I still remember the address, 1069 Washington Street.
1069 Street. Well, friends meet.
Yeah, absolutely. 1069 Washington Street. My grandmother, the late Ann Hampton, was a pillar member of that religious community. My cousin, of course, Timothy Pullen, served as the chief musician there at the church for many years. And so, like you said, our family has really been intricately tied
Yeah,
through that local church and that religious community. And
yeah.
that's how we started. But Malcolm, if you don't mind, will you just take a moment and tell everybody what you have been doing? I will say that also not only were our families connected in religious community, but both of us studied at the great Beulah Heights
Beulah Heights.
Bible College back then. It was the Bible College. It's now the university. But back
Yeah.
in the day when we studied on those halls at Beulah Heights Bible College, it was a just a great place for so many of us were able to meet, to share, and to learn and to study. And upon
Yeah.
leaving Beulah, you've done so much, I've done so much. So I want you to just take a moment or two just to share with our listening audience exactly what has the Reverend Michael Malcolm been doing for the last
Well,
few years in
you
your
know,
community.
I hadn't been doing a whole lot, man. I, I I think since we left Beulah, I went on and got my Master's of Divinity. I found myself a glutton for punishment, so I went back to school again and got my Master's of Business Administration. And after that time, I got into the environmental movement, and since then have been mentored by some great people, and have been able to grow and make strides in that movement, represent faith communities and engage in communities of faith, um, just to provide them access and tools to build power. And so that's pretty much what I've been doing. And that has taken me to doing, national work, international work, as well as regional work in that stratosphere or in that space. Um, I've been able to just recently. I'm actually on vacation right now, in fact, because I'm just burnt out because of being as busy as I have. Just finished writing recommendations for the EPA Transition Committee, as well as the Democratic National Convention platform on environment, which we do have our platform out, our recommendations out right now, and you can easily look me up on social media and see where I've plugged. And if you would, hey, sign on and look at our recommendations. We're putting justice and equity at the center of all that we do.
Well, again, we are thankful for what everything that you've been doing with advocating for our environment, because a lot of times most of us only focus on the inequalities that we are facing right outside of our door, only looking, forward, but not
Yeah,
looking from the broader scope of an
yeah.
entire community. I've been so privileged last year to listen to the Reverend Gerald Durley, who has
Mm-hmm.
been a longtime activist for the environment, and we understand that most times when inequalities and injustices transpire, environmentally speaking, the very first community and the hardest hit community that is dealt the blow of the injustice is the African American community. And so,
Yeah.
before we dig into that, I do want to ask you again, because this is Blackout Tuesday. Here, I'm just taking a few notes. The economic justices in our community. Uh, where do you think these, or how do you think these economic uh, injustices have had a long term effect on our community?
Yeah. So let's digress, and if you don't mind, I would like to get into what you were hinting at, because it does speak to what you just asked.
Mm-hmm.
Um, you made the statement that uh, we look outside our doors, but don't look at the whole community. I would say we don't even look at what's outside our doors. We're more so concerned about what happens on the inside of our doors.
Mm.
Even when it comes down to the churches, we're more concerned about what happens inside the church than what happens on the outside. We do a great job of looking up, but our growing edge, even now, and what you can really see is COVID really pointing this out right now. Our growing edge is being able to look outside. We're more concerned with the worship of the church than the worldly ministry of the church. And so You also brought in one of my primary mentors, Reverend Dr. Gerald Durley. Um, Reverend Dr. Gerald Durley, when I first got into this movement, said something that really made me get engaged and really lean in and see this for what it was. He said, "How can I preach to them in the pulpit, shout them in my pews, but they can't breathe out in public?"
Mm.
That right there spoke volumes to me on how I do ministry,
Mm.
because I started seeing at that point that our lives are affected by way more than what we've talked about under the auspice of church.
Mm-hmm.
That it's a lot greater than that, and in fact, I would even go to say, and I'm not afraid to say it, our religion has been co-opted by corporation. So when we look at economics and we look at the systems in play, we have to really start looking at what Jesus said when Jesus said, "Give to Caesar what's Caesar's and give to God what's God's,"
Mm-hmm.
because they're counter opposing systems,
Mm.
and we don't lean into the part that says this is God's system that takes care of everybody, that
Mm-hmm.
ensures that none are without,
Yeah.
that ensures that the community's needs are met. We are more involved in the corporation side or the corporate side, that we celebrate Easter and Christmas and Thanksgiving and all of this stuff. And we mix patriotism with theology
Mm-hmm.
and even respectability politics with theology. And it's all so we can keep the dollars flowing. We keep our churches going, even when COVID is happening and rising, and we keep bringing people into the church more and more because we're more addicted to the consumer side than we are to the God-centered side.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I'm
And
hoping I'm talking on the economics and really honing in on your question, but you can correct me if I'm not.
but no, I really think you're making a great point. Um, the systems that are in place are opposing, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Because if they were harmonized, then I don't think we'd be seeing so much of a um, antithetical approach to both of them, right?
absolutely, absolutely.
But now, even like today, when we're talking about having or showing forth our strength economically, um, but what good is our economic strength if environmentally we have no way to parade our economic strength, right?
Let's rephrase that, Dante.
Okay.
What good is our economic strength if it's made on the back of our environmental health? What good is it for us to have all the money, all the luxuries,
Mm-hmm.
but we can't breathe?
Mm.
What good is it for us to be able to have the creature comforts, but the water that we try to drink is polluted? Or we have to purchase the water that we drink, which should be free. There's human rights that we have that we as communities of faith ought to be advocating for. These human rights are the right to breathe, the right to have clean water, the right to have healthy food, the right for everybody to have a house over their head or a
Mm-hmm.
home to go to,
Mm-hmm.
the right for everybody to be able to make a decent living. There's no reason why people in society should have to work 40 plus hours and still be in poverty. You can't say that they being lazy. There's something wrong with a system that allows a mother to work her tail off day in and day out and not be able to feed her kids.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's something wrong with a system that will hang our elderly out to dry and have them eating dog food to survive sometimes. There's really something wrong with a system that would turn people away, and to hear a leader of that system say, I told them to decrease the testing so that the numbers could look better. There's something wrong with a system that allows people to die. And I guess that's what I'm called to do. I'm called to speak to a system that allows people to die, to speak against a system that allows people to die.
Well, and I want to ask you this: even our response to the system, or lack thereof, do you think in this current inequality that we are adequately addressing the economic movement and the social aspect of us demanding all of the equality that we deem is necessary for our well-being?
That's a great question. Um, I'll answer it like this. Dave Chappelle has a special on YouTube. I believe it's 8 minutes 46 seconds or 8:46 or something like that. That it's
Mm-hmm.
called. But on that special, he says the streets will speak for themselves.
Yeah.
And though for me, that's prophetic, and that's exactly what's happening right now.
Mm-hmm.
It's also saddening because if I look in history, during the time of the civil rights and even before, the social leaders and thought leaders were the church.
Yeah.
And the streets weren't talking, the streets were listening because the church was talking.
Sure.
Now the streets talking and the church silent.
Are we listening? Are we listening now?
I said, I knew what I said. The
Okay.
streets are talking and the church is silent.
But I guess I'm asking, are we
You
silent
asking,
because we are listening now, even though it's the wrong position?
we are quiet because we are scared. We don't even know what to do with ourselves.
Mm.
I heard a group of preachers talking about going back into their churches,
Mm-hmm.
and nobody had a good theological reason for going back into their church. You know what I heard? We got to meet the numbers. We got metrics.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, I heard people need to be in church because they need encouragement and they need spiritual this, that, and the third. I heard all of these things, but I never heard anybody really talk about a good reason for going back into the church theologically. And what that told me is that we as faith leaders also need to come to grips with our addiction to traditionalism and being into a church. And because if we can't operate outside of that, or if we can't operate inside of that, we don't know how to operate outside of that. Our efforts right now and our energies are going back into the building. Meanwhile, a pandemic is happening. Black Lives Matter is happening. You having uprisings that are happening. You got a president that's just ham crazy right now and getting even worse. You got racial injustice, police brutality, all of these things that we are called to speak against and speak to, but all our energy is being spent trying to get back into a building. We don't know how to do ministry outside of it. So the church is silent. They aren't listening because they still trying to figure out how we going to get back into the building. If they were listening, they'd be out on the street with everybody else. If they were listening, they'd be talking to their legislators and trying to get policy to change.
Mm-hmm. I think that what we have seen here over the last couple of weeks, there are a small group of pastors that are out in the streets. We interviewed a young man 2 weeks ago. He is a pastor here in our local community that had been out on the grounds with the protesters and passing out water and admonishing them that their voices are heard. So, sometimes we do make overgeneralizations, but by and large, you are precisely correct.
Yeah, let me not overgeneralize. I've got too many. I'm one that's out there in the street. Out advocate. So don't get me wrong in saying that the church universal or everybody. No, that's not the case. There are far too many numbers out there of people that's doing it. Interfaith Power and Light, which I also represent, is doing it big. Green the Church is doing it big. So we've got people out here that are really, really doing it. It's not a thing of that's not that. It's just that as you said, there's a small fraction.
Absolutely.
When right now the whole world is hurting and needs our collective action.
Collective action. And we have to do better. We have to do better, right?
Yeah. But again, we've got to imagine, and to me, it's encouraging, but we've got to imagine a next chapter.
Yeah.
We can't go back and fix what's our. Let that burn in the fire.
Yeah.
Let's start imagining a next chapter. What does ministry look like now? And how can I be effective and helpful now?
Yeah.
And going back in your church ain't the way yet. Unfortunately. Just because it's not safe.
Tell you what, put a pin right there. We're going to be back in about 2 minutes. I got to pay a bill real quick. And I want to talk about exactly why you said going back to the church right now is not the answer. So we'll be back in about 2 minutes.
Sounds good.
All right.
Equality versus equity. Equality means every child gets a pair of shoes. Equity means every child gets a pair of shoes that fit. That means every school district has to meet every student's individual needs.
I'm Jerry O'Green with the Black Student Advocate. We advocate for Black employees and Black students within the K-12 school districts. We hold school districts accountable to make sure that Black students and employees are in a fair and equitable workplace.
Are you broken and wounded because of life situations? Situations that were out of your control? Or maybe even some that you've even caused yourself? Nonetheless, we must learn in this life that when life gives you lemons, we must make lemonade. Introducing the Bounce Back Effect. How to Soar in the Midst of Problems by Dr. Carl M. Barnes. In this book, you will learn 5 important principles that will teach you how to soar in every situation that life throws your way. Inspirational author, powerful motivator, and leadership coach, Dr. Carl M. Barnes is changing lives across the world. As a retired commander after serving 35 years in the United States Navy, he is renowned for his powerful training and coaching of executive leaders. This book will inspire you and give you the tools you need to elevate you into your true destiny. Order your copy today. The Bounce Back Effect. How to Soar in the Midst of Problems by Dr. Carl M. Barnes. Available right now.
We're back this evening with our friend and brother Michael Malcolm, who I call Malcolm because of his wonderful, innovative leadership concerning environmental protection and environmental awareness. And tonight we've been discussing, if you're just joining us, I want to go back to a point that you made right before the commercial break. And that was, right now, in your opinion, going back to the physical building is not necessarily the answer. Why do you suggest that?
Well, I mean, it's not necessarily the answer because it's simply not safe. You're putting people in harm's way. period. Even if you socially distant, even if you sanitized everything down after every service, because of the way that this virus is happening, and because there is no cure for it, and you have asymptomatic people that don't necessarily appear to be sick, but they have the virus. You don't know what you're getting into and what you're putting yourself into liability wise when you call for people to come back to church.
Now
I mean,
the critics are gonna say, but we're still going to the gas stations. We're still going to the large big box stores, the grocery stores. Even this past weekend, which was the 4th of July, so many of our people were at the clubs. They were at the parks for large gatherings. And so the critics are going to say, well, if our community is already out engaging in other large group activities, then why can't they come to our 100-seat sanctuary? And if they're small church, because a lot of my friends are small church pastors, our 100-seat auditorium with only 20 people.
Yeah.
What's your response?
And I would say square footage wise, look at the square footage when they go to a gas station. Look at the square footage when they go to when they go to a big box store. Yeah, large big box store. Look at the square footage. Look at the building makeup. Just take a holistic look, not just looking at your church and the square footage that you might have in your church in that small space, but look at the square footage versus what you're comparing it to. You go in a big box store, there's a lot of square footage there. I don't have to be on the aisle with anybody else. When you go into a gas station or go to a gas station, there's more than one way to pay. You can pay at the pump. You don't have to touch anybody else or talk to anybody else or be around anybody else. It's just a thing of spacing and not putting yourself in harm's way. And right now, we need to show leadership in our innovation in the ways that we do ministry versus trying to jump back into being traditional and get back into the building again. It's just not safe.
Okay. And so
and hold on, Daunta, I'm sorry, but there's biblical precedent for what I'm saying as well. Remember, Jethro tells Moses, hey, you need to do better. You got to figure a different way to do this or you're going to kill yourself. Sure. It's just that simple. It's just that simple. You say what now?
No. I mean, that's a way to interpret it. You're going to kill yourself. You're going to put yourself in harm's way. You're going to not most efficiently protect yourself.
Right. And well, I didn't mean kill in the literal sense, but it very well could have happened. He worked himself to death. But also, he also tells them, you're going to hurt these people as well, or you are hurting these people by doing this. So you've got to look out for these people, but you also have to look out for yourself.
Sure. I am one particularly, and I'll just speak for myself. I am one that has and continue to look at more effective ways that we can engage our people virtually. And I'm just thankful that we've been afforded a privilege not only to pastor our local congregation, but now I've had so many people send messages our way that they call me now their internet pastor. I was at a gas station the other day, and a young lady said, "Long." I looked at her. She said, "We went to high school together." I said, "We did?" She said, "Yeah, I was a couple of classes, a couple of years up under you." I watch you every Sunday now. You my pastor. I
That's
said, okay,
what's
okay.
up.
Well, thank you so much. And a year ago, when I was not streaming, when we were not doing anything other than meeting in the building, she said, she went on to say, not only do I watch you, but my 8-year-old son watches. And
Hmm.
I really felt like now, if God has given me a platform to reach more people, then I want to take full advantage of it, right, Malcolm?
That's
I
right.
don't want to be as narrow-minded and as myopic, just saying I got to
That's
get
right.
back to that building. And I got to be honest, I missed that building.
Absolutely.
Listen to this, Malcolm. We're still paying for that building. So
I get it. I get it, man.
I gotta be
I
honest
get
about
it.
that. We're still paying for it. And a lot of people say, Reverend, why y'all still raising offering online? And I gotta let them know, because we're
You got
still
to pay
paying for the
for it.
building.
You got
Uh,
the bill still go on. Yeah.
the energy company still wants their money. The water company was so
Yeah.
gracious enough not to turn the water off, but we still had to pay them every month that we have
Yeah.
service. And so that's why, and I hate to go off on that tangent about why we're still raising money. But I will say that one things I am thankful for, though, Malcolm, is during this time that we have been virtually, so many more have been participating in
Right.
supporting the vision that God has given to us, and I'm real thankful for that. And many are chiming in right now saying the exact same thing. I do want to ask you this. So, by and large, or from an overall perspective, are black churches, are we adequately responding to COVID, in your opinion? Again,
By and large, yes. By and large, yes. Um, I hadn't seen as many. I'm speaking to a specific audience that we know.
mm-hmm.
You and I both know pastors who pastor smaller churches. You and
Absolutely.
I both know pastors right now who are trying to figure ways to continue their church ministry in a real sense, to
Mm-hmm.
keep it alive during this time. And so I'm speaking specifically to that. Now, when you look at mega churches, when you look at some of your more medium-sized churches, a lot of them are doing the right thing. You know, they aren't going rushing back. In black churches now aren't
Mm.
really rushing back, and they are doing. But when you look at some of our smaller churches who are struggling, were struggling prior to pandemic, and now are struggling to keep the doors open and make sure, those are the ones I'm talking to right now. And I'm saying, even in that, it's not time to go back. You've got to think about safety. Don't put yourself in harm's way trying to get back there. Think about safety. But the alternative is, there are other ways to do ministry and
Mm.
still build your ministry that are outside of you being in somebody's pulpit or your pulpit. You can still find. I literally resigned from my church during Easter Sunday was my last Sunday as the pastor of Rush Memorial. I resigned so that
Mm-hmm.
I can concentrate in doing this ministry to the fullness
Mm-hmm.
of, because it grew that much. And
Mm.
what I'm saying is, there's opportunities outside of the pulpit if you would just look outside. Like I said, I think that we do a great job inside our four walls, but we are oblivious to what happens outside our four walls.
Mm.
And that needs to change. And there's a whole lot of ministry outside your four walls. You can still have plenty of church without going into that building.
Yeah. Malcolm, you said something that struck a nerve with me earlier, because I've received reports from senior citizens that have had to make harsh decisions on whether to buy food or to buy medicine, and some do I buy food and medicine and not pay my property taxes to lose the home that I've been living in, that I raised my children in, and I'm raising my grandchildren in, and I want to ask you, in how can churches be beneficial in circumstances when it deals with our elderly, when it deals with those that deal with mental illness and things like that, and its effect on our environment?
So churches change the conversation.
Okay.
If we bring in the moral side of the conversation, we it can be about economics for others. It can be about politics for others. But
Mm-hmm.
when it comes down to the church, we're asking, is it right? And so if we advocate for our senior citizen population,
Mm-hmm.
if we advocate for communities to have fresh food sources in their communities,
Mm.
if we advocate for environmental protection so pollution ends in our communities,
Yeah. Yeah.
as churches, the whole conversation changes. But as long as we're silent, they can continue to control the conversation. So we've got to start talking. We can't just be silent. We've got to start talking and advocating for those that we serve. Those that hurt the most are often the ones that sit in our congregations. Do you just want to heal them spiritually? I don't care what you got to say if my if my stomach growling.
Absolutely.
I can't hear you past the pains in my stomach.
Absolutely.
So are you going to help meet the needs of the practical needs as well as the spiritual needs? And if so, right now, the practical needs are calling and they're needing some ministering too. They need to be served. We're coming up short.
You're right. You're right. So how can we improve is the most obvious question. How can we improve?
Yeah, I love that question. And anytime I talk, I'm asked this question.
Mm-hmm.
And my only reply is get involved with people that are already doing it. The church doesn't have to redo anything, doesn't have to start anything new. The church can partner with community groups that are already doing the work in the community. And they can help you to learn how to do it and teach you what you're doing. So you can get past the learning curve and you can just get right to it if you partner with them.
So hopefully this conversation has, at least at the bare minimum, Malcolm, some pastor who's watching, some faith leader, or some small group leader, or whatever capacity, will just do some research to find a group that's already helping meet the needs of its local community, and ask the questions, see how they can get involved.
Yeah.
And use their resources to help.
Let me give you a couple of practical, just in case anybody's listening and really does want to write it down. Most states in the United States of America has an interfaith power and light. I would invite any congregation to get involved with interfaith power and light. There's also green faith, that any congregation can be a part of green faith. There's also, if you want to do advocacy and your church wants to do advocacy, nonviolent civil disruption, meaning that you basically do good to disrupt the system that's doing harm. So say you go into a community that's suffering from food apartheid, and they can't get fresh food. You go in and you all plant guerrilla gardens. Just we're gonna plant a garden right here. And if the government has an issue with it, then they got to explain why there's no fresh food in this community. Or a community doesn't have green spaces. You go in and create a green space somewhere that people can go and exercise and walk around and deal with the stresses of life. these are things that are absent in Black and brown communities and poor communities. They're plentiful in communities of affluent communities,
Mm-hmm.
but they're absent in our communities. And your church sits right in the middle of our communities. Why aren't you speaking on this? Why aren't you doing anything about it? So we've got arm in arm. Again, if you look on my social media, you'll see these things that I'm talking about, because these are people that I identify with and interact with regularly. So
Mm-hmm.
there are a great deal of complementary ministry advocacy groups that you can get involved with, that you don't have to recreate anything. There's no sense in calling everybody together and planning out anything. It's already been planned. Just jump on board and help somebody else to build.
Wow. 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 And some of those key areas that we talked about are what's going on, the insufficiencies in our communities. And one of the premier thing about understanding your role in the community is to go out and ask people about your organization. Go within a 3 to 5 mile radius. Ask them, are they aware of your organization, your church, your organization? And if they can't tell you three things, um,
Right.
then I
Right.
think that's
We're
where
not doing
most
it.
of us need to make sure that we hurry up and do something about that. Um,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
again, like you said, for most that are watching, we feel the burden. Man, I don't have the staff, I don't have the resources to feed 100 people, to clothe 100 people, to do all of these things that we know need to be done. But Malcolm, what you're saying, somebody else is already doing it.
Right.
And can we go Bible for a moment? One can put
Let's go back.
1,000 to flight.
Yeah.
Two can put.
Two can put 10,000.
Mm,
That's right. 10,000.
and in most of our communities, there are 10,000 mouths that need to be fed. 10,000
Absolutely.
bodies that need
Absolutely.
medicine. 10,000 seniors that need affordable housing. 10,000 women. Last week we were on with Miss Crystal Perry that talked about Malcolm. Uh, so many women during this crisis do not have uh, proper pads and things like that. And just the other day, she was telling me for a measly $3 to $5, she can put together a packet that can service a lady of any ethnicity right here in the community where she lives and where I live, and doing something about that need. And so I know there are a lot of women that want to help other women. There are a lot of
Yeah.
men that want to help other men. Um,
And, and and Dante, let me say this as well, because you brought up, the building has to be paid for.
sure,
And
sure.
believe it or not, there are funders, and you may know this, but there may be some people that don't know this.
Help us
There are
tonight. Help us,
funders.
please.
There are funders out there that will help you to support your ministry and making sure that things do get paid if you're doing the work of doing ministry outside your four walls. They can't support what they can't see. So if you out in the street and you doing ministry, people will support it. And my wife was laughing today, and I don't say this bragging at all,
Mm-hmm.
because I'm not there in any way. I'm
Sure.
still a little struggling preacher. But somebody sent a check, and it was a check for pretty significant amount. And she said, people just be giving you money. And I'm like, no, we doing work. So people want to support the work that we do.
Sure.
And the same thing can happen, just as people give an offering to your church and join your church because they enjoy coming to your service. If you're doing work out there, man, and you really doing ministry, people will support it.
Yeah. Malcolm,
You just have to choose.
I can testify that when our church has done everything from gosh, I hate to do this because I really don't like talking about what we've done, but
Yeah, yeah.
when we've done a lot over the 2 years, from helping women, helping
Mm-hmm.
children, of course feeding. I live by that. When I was hungry, you did not feed me. When I was naked, you didn't clothe me. When I was sick, you did
Yeah,
not come and visit.
yeah.
One thing the Lord has been on me about is helping those that are currently incarcerated. I've talked about it
Mm,
a lot, but I want to
mm.
transparently say that I've not done adequate support to help those that are incarcerated, and the Lord has dealt with me adequately about that
Okay.
because He sent people my way to help me. And Malcolm, I was too busy trying to do something else and did not partner. As soon as we finish with this, I'm gonna look that brother up who gave me the call.
No, that's
So
right.
we got to do something about it.
Yeah.
We where we are tonight is just helping somebody really develop a consciousness
Yeah.
to do something abnormal, right? Do you feel like
Yeah.
that's what we're trying to do tonight?
I would say yeah, yeah. We're definitely bringing about an awareness
Mm-hmm.
that there is something else.
Yeah.
Um, you and I both, you'll appreciate this, just like I think some of our listeners would as well. So I asked the question about who are some of our greatest speakers of all times, black speakers of all times,
Mm-hmm.
and I brought mention of John Henry Clark in.
Mm-hmm.
And somebody said, no, he's a great teacher. He was a great teacher, but I wouldn't necessarily say he was a great preacher, a great
Okay.
speaker. And I said, yeah, okay, I can go with that. But it made me think about him. And what John Henry Clark did, he taught us how to look at our black experience beyond slavery.
Right.
He taught us that we existed before slavery.
Right.
And what I'm trying to do tonight, and I think what you're trying to do as well, is show preachers and faith leaders that they can imagine ministry beyond the pulpit.
Yeah.
That even before that building existed, ministry was. Go discover that part so you can see where you can play a part.
Mm.
I'd love to see our churches become the epicenter of thought once again,
Wow.
of social change once again.
Wow. 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 If we become the epicenter, and I love what W.E. Du Bois said, that we can facilitate it all. Don't mean we the church have to change it all, right?
Right,
Right. We can
right,
facilitate it. Bring it my way. I can listen to what's going on with this group and that group and those over there, but don't look for me to try to solve it all. So,
right,
Pastor Faith Leader, if you're watching, we're not saying that you're going to have to now get 500 more phone calls, shell out
right.
thousands of more dollars out of your budget. No. But I
Not at
do
all.
believe that those that are not being heard should be able to come to our facility, maybe, or virtually now, as we get so many requests here virtually now, that we can be, as you said, Malcolm, the epicenter,
Yeah,
the resource, the think tank, whatever you want to describe us as, but that it
right.
funnels through us. But like you said in the preface, if we're too silent and not saying anything about the fact that our church is on the same corner with 3 liquor stores and no fresh fruits and vegetables, then we got a real systemic problem.
Or better yet, that right in your community they doing payday loans, and your church sit right next to the payday loan office.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And you seeing your congregation, your members in your congregation getting caught up in payday loans.
And payday loans and title loans against the cars at 40%.
Right. But that's what I'm saying, and you ain't saying nothing. You
Title
silent.
loans at 40%.
And the reality is, Dante, here's why I say we're silent. We're talking about stuff that not every preacher knows, and they should if it's happening in their community. If it's happening in your community and it's an injustice, you ought to know about it.
You ought to know about it.
You ought to know about it. And you ought to know who's doing something about it. That's when the church is talking again.
It should not happen in my community, and I'm not having a seat at the table to talk about it.
Right. You should be. You should be. They should be saying, well, where's the preacher?
Yeah. Yeah. Boy, this is powerful. This is powerful. Malcolm, I want to talk about this all night, but I know you on vacation. I don't know. Tell Mrs. Malcolm I'm sorry that we scheduled this on the day of your vacation.
She laying over there cutting her eyes at me. Listen, I'm gonna point you out soon as I see you.
Tell her I'm so sorry. Tell her little brother wanted to have a dialogue tonight, and we have to lift some awareness. And the seriousness of the moment is because some faith leader, and I know, and I'm not being braggadocious, but a lot of faith leaders watch Long Talk.
Right.
And a lot of them tell me, Long, I see what you're talking about. Long, I see what you're doing. Long, how can I? Long, where do I start? And I think tonight what you highlighted, and I know we didn't talk about a lot of the environmental injustices, and we'll bring you back later to talk about all of those.
Sounds good.
And to bring awareness. But again, Malcolm, admonish some leader as to what their next step will be in our close.
So, though Pastor Daunta said we didn't talk a lot about environmental justice, in our actuality we did. Environment is the things that surround you, and anything that alarms you or hurts you that surrounds you is of concern to me. Because if we care about people, then we care about their livelihoods and we care about their positions in this society that we live in. And we ought to want to see everybody have equal position and equal standing in society. And we should be fighting for that. That's a part of the gospel. That's a part of what Jesus did. When Jesus goes in and turns over tables, he turns over tables, and what he says is, my house should be a house of prayer for all people, all nations. And today I fear that if Jesus turned over tables and made that declaration, we'd call the police on him and he'd probably get shot. We have got to get back to a place where we put people and planet over profit. And it's up for us.
Whoa, say that one more time.
We've got to get back to a place where we put people and planet over profit. And it's up for us as faith leaders to call that into being, because that is our job. We were called to call our society back to God and back to morality. And a part of that is to show that we care for everybody. And we do that through our voice, because that's what God gave us to use. That would be my admonishment.
Friend, thank you so much for taking time, even during your vacation, to come on and chat with us.
Not a problem.
I appreciate it, and I salute you, and thank you so much for what you're doing in the communities in which you serve. I'm happy that you have taken this road. Robert Frost said it, a road less traveled, perhaps.
Yeah.
Because most of us want to just put our hands on the ear and say, the Lord gonna make a way. Won't he do it? And we're gonna dance and buck over, won't he do it? But I think that he will do it if we first do it. Yeah. If we first care about, man, you said a mouthful, people and planet over property. And if we do that, I think everything's gonna things in terms and conditions will be better. Is that all right?
Yes, sir. I appreciate you, man.
Thank you so much. I appreciate everything you're doing.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
All right. Take care. Take care.
All right.
Friends, tonight here on Long Talk, we've taken this time just to talk about terms and conditions in our community. As many faith leaders and religious leaders and church leaders are watching, and perhaps tonight, if your pastor is not watching, tag them. If your small group leader is not watching, go ahead and tag them. And the reason why, you're not calling anybody out. You're just raising awareness. You're unlocking consciousness. And the old African idiom is true. When you know better, do better. When you're aware that many in your community are being taken advantage of, when you're aware that many in your community don't have the privilege of, and if that's food, water, housing, or whatever, if you are aware of that now that you know, it's time to do something about it. And again, calm down. Let's slow down. I'm not telling you to do something about it, that you need to go dump some money at it. You need to gather up all your people and no. What I'm saying tonight, leader, if you're watching me, as the late Dick Gregory would say, punch it up, Google it up. See who else is doing something about this in your community. If there's another advocacy group, another nonprofit organization, then you can call that person. And when you do this, do you realize that you are doing something impactful to help your community outside of your immediate and intimate community and group? Tonight, please, leader, I'm talking to you tonight, and I feel a special call to talk to my pastor friends, my small group leaders, and all that do work for the kingdom of God. This is necessary that you get outside of these four walls, because we've been in the four walls for so long. I do believe that God has allowed this pandemic to happen, as many of us said at the beginning of the year, to realign our focus. To see, guess what, pastor? Guess what, church leader? People and planet are more, it is more important than what we bring in today, Doc. Did we raise enough? No. Did mother eat today? Did that young person, did that family find some housing? And when your awareness and your consciousness is brought to this order, it's going to work out better. It's going to work out better for your community. And you're going to watch, as Malcolm said earlier, people are going to start supporting you when you support the cause and the mission of your community. So please, do what is necessary to connect with somebody tonight who's already doing it. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. You don't have to dump a pile of money, dump a pile of resources. Just connect to somebody that's already doing it so that things will get better. All right? Thursday night, I got a very special guest, Miss Jasmine Bowles, who is on the Board of Education here in Clayton County, Georgia. She's going to be my special guest, and I'm looking for all of my friends to join me. She's got some exciting but most meaningful dialogue that she wants to share on Thursday night. So join us again Thursday night at 7:30. Listen, you've been a part of Long Talk tonight. I appreciate all of you that have tuned in, and join us again Thursday night at 7:30 for Long Talk. God bless you.
Follow us on Facebook at Daunta A. Long. Follow us on Instagram at Daunta Long. Follow us on YouTube at Daunta A. Long. Thank you for tuning in to Long Talk.